She had labored her entire life for this moment, passport in hand, future open. But in an instant, it was lost. Burned, torn, destroyed by the very individual who was supposed to assist her from traveling. To the crowd, it appeared only another random check. To her, it was humiliation, anger, and shock all mixed into one. What nobody understood, not the agent, not the passengers in hushed silence, was who she actually was. And when the truth finally came out, everything shifted. So the question is, how far does prejudice blind us before reality has to make us see? She had lived her life for years on discipline, accuracy, and pride. A chief FAA inspector, her job required perfection. Every detail counted, every choice weighed. Respected by colleagues, trusted by pilots, and yet, in civilian life, she was simply another passenger, going through bustling airports like everyone else. This day's mission was to be routine, a flight to inspect safety checks, another step along a career of duty. But the airport was not merely a destination and source of departure. It was a stage where dignity was tried, where silence from strangers was more expressive than words. She walked with quiet confidence, not knowing that within moments, the very document that assured her right to travel, the passport she had acquired through years of service, would be used as the instrument of her humiliation. And what occurred at that gate would be more than cruel. It would be the demonstration of how quickly power can be misused, and how respect can so easily be taken away when prejudice is in command. The gate line crawled along, travelers inching forward, each with passport clutched in hand, ready to board. It was second nature to her. She had done it 1,000 times. She set down her bag, surrendered her papers, and waited for the quick nod that normally came next. But what she received was hesitation. The agent's gaze stayed on her face, then her complexion, before moving down to the passport. The smile she had worn dissolved. Something was amiss. The agent riffled through the pages as if checking for an error. He regarded her again, this time chilly. Passengers tapped their feet impatiently behind her, but the tension between them stretched like taut rope. At last the words emerged, cold and curt. "This doesn't look right." Distraught, she recited to herself every stamp being genuine, every page authenticated. But before she could say anything, the passport was ripped from her grasp. The crowd grumbled, interested but detached, no one willing to make a move. She requested politely for its return. Instead, the agent sneered, then, in a sickening motion, applied the corner of her passport to the rim of a lighter. The fire flared in an instant. Gasps came around her as the cover curled, the pages charred. She instinctively reached out, but the agent jerked back, allowing the document to burn in his hand as if it were nothing but garbage. The acrid smell of burned paper wafted through the air, combined with the growing tension in the crowd. At that moment, she felt naked, not of her right to fly, but of her dignity. She had spent years upholding the highest standards of respect and safety in aviation, and yet here she was, helpless against the cruel indifference of one man in uniform. Her mind raced. What would happen now? Without a passport, she couldn't board. Without that document, her identity, her career, her very freedom to move through the world was questioned. The agent looked almost satisfied, as though proving a point to himself and to everyone watching. "You don't belong here." Passengers gazed but remained silent, their eyes shifting between the woman and the man in authority. She could sense the heaviness of their silence as a second act of violence. Bystanders who stood by doing nothing. And yet, inwardly, a fire smoldered bigger than the flame that had incinerated her passport. She was aware of whom she was. She understood the authority she bore, the duty she held. The question was, how much further was this humiliation going to go before truth pounded its way into the light?
The acrid aroma of charred paper continued to hang in the air, thick and choking. Her passport, now nothing more than ash within seconds, smoldered on the ground. taking with it the burden of her pride. The gate agent stood, arms crossed. A smirk of self-satisfaction spread wide across his face, challenging her to resist. Hushed murmurs circulated through the crowd at large, some shocked, others tinged with silent understanding. No voice lifted in her defense. Her chest constricted. This was not about a passport. It was about being made invisible. All that work, all that service, all those sacrifices she had made to save other people in the air were now imperceptible, trumped by the hue of her skin. Humiliation weighed her down like a hand around her neck. The agent spoke at last, his tone filled with contempt. "Guess you won't be flying today." Something within her broke. For years, she had walked with reserve, allowing her work to shout louder than her anguish. But here, exposed and humiliated in public eyes, silence was no longer possible. She stood tall, every inch of her exuding the power that went with her position, and allowed her voice to pierce the tension. "You just revoked the passport of a Federal Aviation Administration chief inspector." The silence froze. The smile fleeted from his face. Eyes opened wide, mouths dropped open in surprise. Phones were raised higher still, recording every moment. The same travelers who had turned away moments before now hunched forward, realizing what they had just witnessed before their eyes. For the first time, it wasn't her identity that was being questioned. It was his. His abuse of power, his prejudice, his arrogance, now laid bare under the same fluorescent lights he once stood behind. And in that moment, the power shifted. The silence that followed what she said was louder than the fire that had destroyed her passport. The gate agent stood stunned, his self-assurance shaken to its foundations by what he had just done. Supervisors hurried over, passengers murmured in shock, and cameras clicked from all sides. To her, however, the damage was already irreparable. A career marked by excellence had not shielded her from the bite of bias. A lifetime of work had not protected her from being brought down in a matter of seconds to no more than the pigment of her skin. The encounter didn't stop at that gate. It pursued her far beyond, in official statements, in investigations, in headlines that would quickly circulate. But the deeper hurt wasn't the misplaced passport. It was a reminder of how easily dignity can slip when society allows uncurbed power to bias. She had rank, she had authority, she had a title that commanded respect, and yet she was treated as if none of it existed. Her tale compels us to grapple with an unpleasant reality. If this is what happens to her, what becomes of those with no titles, no powers, no protection of an influential role? How many voices are muffled? How many lives shattered, never to appear in the headlines? This was never ever about a piece of paper. This was about humaneness, denied in broad daylight, as others observed mutely. Thus the question is left to each of us. When prejudice plays out before our eyes, will we remain quiet, or will we finally decide to speak?